Today I'm going to talk about a revelation that not only helped to change my life and my revenue stream, but it also helped change my approach to dealing with adversity. What up, y'all? It's Romany Malco, and as promised to my Patreon followers, today I am going to be discussing something that I feel is very dear to me. And what it is things that I've gone through in my life that have actually brought about real change. Sacrifices that I've made, decisions that I've made to do things differently, approaches that I've taken to things that have actually made real shifts in my life. Today I'm going to be talking specifically about what occurred to lead me to the point of having the career that I have today. So it starts as follows. I was in a situation in my career, or in my life as a whole, where I was just stuck. And what I mean by stuck is I had an internet business that I had been running for years, and suddenly it was failing. It was dwindling down to nothing. I was losing my house, the first home that I ever purchased. I was now losing it because of a minor discrepancy in my credit score. I was unable to refinance, and I was unable to pay the taxes on that property. And it was within the first year of home ownership. Also, as an actor, I hadn't worked in 2 years, but I was still fairly new considering. So I had basically hit a glass ceiling in my acting career, hit a glass ceiling with my internet business. I had also hit a glass ceiling with my girlfriend because we had just had a pretty terrible breakup. I never forget the night that I broke up with my girlfriend. I was doing a thing called Dawn Yoga, and they had a master's class that night. And I wasn't a master, but I was allowed to attend it. I showed up, it was raining, no one else was there. And so I ended up getting all the treatment, all the masters who were there, they worked specifically on me. They had me doing breathing exercises with someone standing on my stomach and all these interesting stretches. And a lot of Dawn Yoga involves tapping, scientifically proven to be one of the best ways to bring about healing in areas of the body. So you do like 1,000 taps here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here. It breaks up mucus, all kinds of stuff, right? So I do all that stuff. And the funny thing is before I got there, when I first walked in the door and realized I was the only person there, one of the masters was like, "Yo," she's like, "You've got a lot of head energy. Is everything okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, everything's good." She goes, "But so much head energy." And I just told her the truth. I was like, "My girl and I went through a breakup and it's been really ugly." And she was like, "Okay, well, let's work." And so we do all this tapping, we do all these exercises, and an hour and a half later, she looks at me and she's like, "How do you feel?" And I was like, "A lot better." And she goes, "Now you think." That one little thing brought about a shift. And what it did was made it clear that a lot of times I'm trying to think when I'm still fully engaged with, the most emotional and irrational part of my brain is what I should say. And she made me realize that there are steps that we can take to get ourselves to a more rational way of thinking before actually trying to come up with solutions and responses or whatever, or just trying to decipher what you're going through. That in itself made a huge difference. And the truth is, from that point forward, I never felt the angst. I never felt the resentment. I never felt the hurt. I never felt any of what I had been feeling prior to that. But nevertheless, the rest of my life, I was still rather stuck. And the one blessing that I had was that I realized that I was stuck because it was not just my relationship, it was not just my business, it was also my career. And the common denominator in all those instances was me. I was the common denominator. So I had no one to blame at this point. What I ended up doing was I ended up being like, you know what? This house, I bought this house damn near a year ago and it ain't brought nothing but stress to me. Other folks can have this house. I ain't trying to mess with it. I don't, it's for sale. So I called the realtor and said, "Yo, let's show the house. It's for sale. I can't keep it. Obviously, it was a mistake to purchase." I agreed to have open houses and I said, "I'm going to be out. I'm going to actually leave the house at 7 o'clock every morning and I'm not coming back until the sun goes down." And so what I ended up doing every day was ended up loading up my car, which is like a $6,900 Volvo that I had bought for myself way before all of this stuff. And I would go to the beach every single day because I lived right up the street from the beach. I'd go to the beach every single day and I'd have a guitar in the car. I'd have books, lawn chair, my boogie board, my summer wetsuit. And literally I spent all my time at the beach. And here's what I would do. I would meet people. I would boogie board. I would meditate. I would read. I would learn guitar chords. And that was it. And when I got hungry, all I had was about $973 to my name. So whenever I got hungry, what I would do is I would go to the store that had like a food buffet, and I would take a little bit of lettuce and all this other stuff, and I'd take like a small bit of like meat protein, and that would be it. Every day I just sit there, and then at night, as it started getting late, I just sit on this one bench that you get this beautiful view of the moon and everything. And the same bench is a great bench to watch the sunset from, and I would just meditate. And while I was sitting there one day meditating, I heard this voice that sounded exactly like mine out of nowhere, and the voice goes, I gotta ask you a question. If you're working on all of the minutia, who's working on the stuff that actually helps you move forward? Like literally, I heard the voice like it was talking right over my head. I was like, damn, that's a good question. All the minutia. I was like, and it's true, I have a tendency to micromanage my business. I micromanage everything. I was like, well, damn, I don't know. And so the voice goes, hire an assistant. And I'm telling you, sometimes you hear some words, they could be the simplest words. It could be, yo, you got a fat booty. And it just resonate with you. You just feel it in your soul. Like, damn, God really meant for you to hear that. These words, hire an assistant, and that question resonated with my soul. Like God really needed for me to hear that. I literally got up and did like this, spread my arms and tried to hug the universe like, thank you. Thank you for that piece of insight. And then I took my butt on and went home and immediately got on Craigslist. And I got on Craigslist and I started typing out the most ridiculous list of duties one would have to follow if they were to be my assistant. It's embarrassing how arrogant. I mean, drive me around. It was crazy. As I went to post it, I realized it was going to be $25 to post. So I kind of got my card and was like, damn, I'm going to spend $25 on this. Do it. And somehow the other, maybe it's because it was the first one I'd ever posted. I don't know, but Craigslist allowed me to post it for free. So it ended up being a free post. And within a day or two, I was interviewing 7, 8, 9, 10 models a day in my living room. Sometimes 12, 15 models in a day in my living room. And then this woman named Joy shows up who was actually qualified. She was actually qualified and she was not a model. And I was like, hallelujah. She was overqualified, but she wanted to do this, and she was from Alabama. I'll never forget this girl. She's from Alabama, and she's like, I'm a diehard Republican. And she would eat Carl's Jr. in the morning, and she would come out short with a big soda, and it was kind of hilarious, to be honest. I was just looking for someone who was qualified. She was so driven and so overly qualified and so interested in helping that I found her to be the best candidate, ended up hiring her. So let me tell you one of the things that she did was she was like, look, man, let me know what you need done and I'm going to do my thing and you let me know how you want it handled. And so I said, well, the first thing I want to do is introduce you to my agents. I want my agents to get to know you. So literally I called my agents and said, yeah, when you get a chance, I left a message letting them know, have my agents call me back. I want to introduce them to someone who's going to be working with me. And I told Joy, I said, now Joy, listen, I can only hire you part-time. I have $973 to my name, which means I can only hire you part-time for maybe a week or two. She's like, doesn't matter. This is what I want to do. If this is how I have to get the experience, this is how it's going to happen. I'm like, okay, all right. My agents don't call back. Joy starts telling me, it's okay if you don't have an agent. You don't have to have an agent. I still want to work for you. I believe in you. This is what I want to do, and I believe in you. No, I really do have agents. But if you're down, I'm just saying, if you're down, it's okay. The conversation of me trying to convince Joy because my agents weren't calling back that I had agents when I knew deep down inside she didn't believe me was hilarious in and of itself. But lo and behold, guess what happened? Joy had my phone and my agent did call. And they called 3 days later to say that they had an audition for me. And it was for a show called Weeds. I was like, all right, so they wanted me to read the script. I read the script. That's a lie. I didn't read the script. I read the first 4 pages of the script and was like, there's no way in hell I'm doing this. I don't care what happens. My lady just called me and she is the priority. She's having our baby. So anyway, listen, I read Weeds and the first 4 pages, like, ain't no way in hell. So my agent called me back and was like, what's up? And I'm like, did you read the first 4 pages of this? She's like, yeah. I'm not doing that shit. I'm not doing that stereotypical shit. I'm tired of seeing black people depicted like this on TV. I ain't fucking with this shit. And she's like, Rom, read the whole script. I hear you. I thought the same thing when I first read it, but as I got through to it, there's a lot more to it, and we really do believe this is going to be a good project for you. And so I did read it, and she was right. There was a lot more to it. The family had a lot more substance. The message was hilarious and poignant. And the opportunity to work with Mary Louise Parker was also a big perk. And so I agreed to go in and do the audition. And I went and did the audition. They really liked me and ended up wanting me to come back, but then ended up saying that there was some payment discrepancies, and that if I were willing to take a pay cut this go round, they would compensate me further down the line. And I just, once again, I passed. I was like, no, I'm not doing that either. I'm tired of black people being asked to sound like I have a chip on my shoulder, but I was like, I'm tired of folks being asked to take a pay cut, asking black folks to take pay cuts. And keeping it 100, man, I ain't gonna lie, like, I was really cool with not doing the gig. Because one thing I proved to myself time and time again, it may not be in the most ideal way, but I always figure out a way to survive. That's a fact. About this brother right here. I will survive. I will be just fine, homeless or not. So my agent calls me and goes, okay, well, we'll go back to them. And they were able to get them to give a little more money, and that was cool. But I was like, nah, just the principle of it all. And my agent's like, look, Ron, let me talk to you. I agree that this isn't the best paycheck. They're asking you to take a pay cut. They're giving you something below your quote. It is cable, and that's part of the reason. They're taking a gamble on the show. But we think that this is the type of show that might win awards, and it might really do something for your career. The role and just who we know you to be as an actor, it's a perfect match. And she said, think about it. I think you're right. I think the beef you have is on the money, but just think about it. And so I said I would think about it. I decided that I would do it. And I do the callback because they call me back. I do my thing, and then they hire me. But the funny thing is in the midst of all of that, when it was time for me to study, I was trying to organize all these things in my basement. And Joy goes, no, that's my job now. Let me handle all this. You go study. And when she said that, it was the first time I was like, oh shit, I tend to multitask a lot. And so I was really trying to memorize the lines and stuff and learn the scenes while I was trying to handle all the things in my house. And she's like, no. So I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go back to doing what I was doing before Joy showed up, which was took my ass to the beach. And so I'd be at the beach learning my lines. And sure enough, within a matter of days, me and Joy had booked Weeds. Game changer. Now the beach is proving so productive that I'm afraid to leave the beach. So everybody's like, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, thank you. I'm still getting up and going to the beach. I call my realtor. I'm like, yo, we ain't got to sell the house no more. I got it all covered and then some. It's all good. Don't worry about it. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, it's okay, because you've got some good offers. I'm like, no, I want to keep it, blah, blah, blah. That was a relief. Within a matter of days, I get another call from my agents. Judd Apatow wants to see me for a movie called The 40-Year-Old Virgin. I didn't know who Judd Apatow was, but I was definitely open to doing it. I read the script, solid script. It was one of the most solid scripts I had read, or I've read in my career. And I read the script, and I'm like, damn, that's really good. But this role that they've written is for kind of like a 24-year-old or 22-year-old frat dude who's kind of not done being a frat. You know what I mean? And white dude, clearly. And when I went into the audition, Jared was like, no, bro. I want you to make this your own. You do what you think you need to do with this. And that was the beginning of a 3-hour session of audition. One 3-hour audition after another. So he would call me back in and come in and do it again. Then out of the blue, after doing 3 of those, he decided that he needed me again. But by that time, my life had already changed. I had been set up to do Weeds. I had money. I was planning to go do a political campaign in Florida. And I was like, yo, I've already I promised this group that I would go with them to help canvas in Florida. And my agent's like, bro, you're gonna have to miss that because this is the only day the Judd can get you and Steve Carell in the same room. Sure enough, me and Joy booked 40-Year-Old Virgin. And now I'm like, oh, so the game is to be at the beach. Within that time frame, I ended up booking another pilot. It was bananas. I just kept booking stuff. So I really had to stop and think about it. Sitting at the beach trying to reverse engineer what had occurred. What brought about this shift to where I went from famine to feast, where I went from being unemployed, losing my business, not being able to pay for my house. What was the shift? And you know what the shift was, y'all? It became clear as I tried to reverse engineer it and backtrack. The shift was rather simple. What it was that when I was sitting in my house, losing my business, not being able to pay my property tax, not being able to pay my mortgage, not being able to pay my homeowners association, sitting in that house, I was focused on everything that I was losing, everything that I was failing to do. I was focused on everything that was going wrong. Consistently, I would wake up with it every day, and I'd go to sleep with it every day. And the minute I decided that I was going to take my ass to the beach and sell the house, I was now sitting on the beach, clearing my mind, focusing on all these other things that interest me, having fun, meeting people, and eating in a way that was kind of cleansing because my skin became crazy flawless at that time because of the way that I was eating. And I was exercising because I was constantly in the water and swimming and boogie boarding and running up and down the beach playing football with people that I didn't even know. The long and short of it is I spent so much time just sitting still, being in a positive environment, being in a positive mindset, that I kind of shifted my mentality and my focus to possibilities rather than looking at the tragedy that I was experiencing. And in doing so, I began to dream again. I began to see possibilities for myself. I began to have these great aspirations again. That became the predominant focus in my mind. And just as my mindset shifted, my world began to shift. That has been my formula for any time that I find myself stuck. Now, moving forward. I remember being in Paris at a friend's house and just being like, yo, dog, you going to work, right? He's like, yeah. So I'm going to sit in this chair right here from sun up to sundown, if you don't mind. He's like, no, man, do what you want. And he literally left. And when he left, I watched the sun. I watched the shadow of the window pane go up the roof, all the way up the roof, all the way down the wall, all the way onto the floor, all the way out, and back out the window again. That's how long I sat in that one chair. I only got up to use the restroom. And again, amazing breakthroughs. I've done it repeatedly because, one, I realize how rare it is that we actually give ourselves moments of time to refresh our focus, to clear out all the counterproductive thoughts and allow ourselves to accumulate or amass more productive, constructive ways of thinking. We get so mired down in our day-to-day issues, we get so mired down in our day-to-day challenges, caught up in making impressions that we actually lose sight of our dreams and what is real to us, what really matters. And what people think about you is not really the main thing. I remember hearing this saying where it was like, when you're like in your teens, you obsess about what other people think about you. And when you're like in your 20s, you kind of rebel. You don't really want to know, but at the same time, it kind of possesses you. And then when you get into your 30s, you start being like, I don't give a damn. And when you get into your 40s and 50s, you just come to terms with the fact that other people are just going to have judgments about you. And by the time you hit 60, you realize that no one was really ever paying attention to you at all. And it's kind of true. You know, Tijuana Jackson, I use this quote with Tijuana Jackson, which is that life is like a canvas. No one ain't really trying to see you until you put something on it. And it's kind of true. And so, you know, these things that I was obsessed with, setting the right impression and all these things kind of went out the window. And I really spent my time sitting at a beach, genuinely sitting at a beach, trying to figure out what the next step was for my happiness, what the next step was for me to be experiencing my full potential, what my big lofty dreams were. I had cleared my mind. I had gotten myself out of that negative pattern of thinking. And I also had learned that it's very difficult to think when there's so much tension. Think objectively when there's so much tension. Remember the Dawn Yoga experience. So I really make it my duty to be like, no matter how much I want to put somebody in their place or tell someone off or say what I feel, I really try to take a beat, a long beat. And if I take a long enough beat, I kind of forget about it. And then when it does come back to me, I do remember it. It doesn't matter as much, right? And so I kind of use the same method whenever I'm trying to come up with solutions, which is that try not to do it amidst the tension, amidst all the anxiety. I try not to do it when my predominant focus is my downfall, because it's just like skating. Like, I don't know if how many of you skate, but when you skate, you go where you look. You really do. And so like if I'm looking down, pretty much I'm headed that way, you know? So the key with skating is to always keep your eye on the prize, you know? Because I think that it's very important that amidst COVID-19, with all the screens that we're now dependent on and all the devices that we have that pull us out of our zone because we're so accessible, it's important to prioritize those moments of stillness. And I guarantee you, whoever you are, if you can sit with no distractions from sun up to sundown, it will change your life. It will change your perspective. I guarantee you. It'll become like crack to you. You'll need it. And I'm guilty of someone who knows the benefits of it and still doesn't exercise the discipline to do it enough. And I'm not saying there's any discipline. You don't have to sit there and go om, or you don't have to be in any particular position. It's just a matter of allowing yourself a life for a day without any distractions. It's crazy when you just sit there, the things that come to mind that you had completely forgotten about, that you had never thought about. And some of these things actually need to be addressed, but you've buried them. We are the masters at finding ways to avoid our pain. That's what human nature is. We live to avoid pain, but sometimes being able to identify with that pain is the only way to truthfully break past the glass ceiling to the next level. So I would just say, from my experience, having to sit still and allow myself to come up with all these little revelations, such as hire an assistant and you've got to forgive your mom, or have you ever asked your mother for an apology? Like, all of these things started coming to my mind while I was sitting at the beach. None of this stuff had ever crossed my mind before. And so I would just say to you and every single person that is watching this video on my Patreon, say, yo man, give yourself a shot. Give yourself a shot at just being with yourself. I am telling you, it is worth it. You are worth it. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to every single person who's contributed to my Patreon. It really makes a difference. And I really hope that you find videos like these useful and beneficial, to whatever you are trying to put into practice in your life. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please put the questions in my Patreon, message me through my Patreon, whatever you got to do. But I want to know, because that's what my next video is probably going to be about. All right, so thank you very much. Y'all have a blessed one. My name is Romany Malco, Patreon/Romany Malco. That's my conclusion. I hope y'all are happy, man, and there's more to come. We got plenty more to discuss. This is just the beginning.